Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Magpie Circle. We had an abandoned one on Monday night. That's the first time ever. The Gremlins got in touch, couldn't sort them out, but on the basis I've not had an echo in the opening 15 seconds, I'm hoping we have managed to sort that out. Tonight on the show, slightly different among other topics we'll be discussing, the renaissance of Notts fans. Record numbers, home and away. In our last three home games, we have had a total of 40,000 people coming through the turnstiles. 40,000 in our last three home games. That's for National League and League Two. That's pretty impressive. So, want to hear your thoughts and views on that. Why you think that is? I've had quite a lot of emails coming in, social media as well. Let's get your thoughts. It's Tranmere on Saturday, top half of the table. Three of the four games played so far have been away from home. Who's forgotten about Sutton now, who have proceeded to go and lose their next three remaining games in the league? So just shows you, opening day of the season, not to be judged at all. Anything else that you want to bring up tonight on the show? Chloe from Northern Lancashire or wherever you are, good evening.
Good evening, Paul. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. And we've got lots of hellos from Paul Huskisson says evening all, James Shipley. I'm getting deja vu. You're what? I'm getting deja vu. John Parnham, evening. Ian G, evening, fellow pies. 80 Clark from Chesterfield. Evening all. Any more bloopers tonight, Paul? Well, we hope not. Even all from Paul Willis, Ian Cooksey, John Gregory. I'm assuming that's not my old mucker from Leicester City, the QPR player, managing out in India, last I heard from John. JG, as he is known. I'm assuming that is not JG, the former professional footballer. Derek Flowers, success brings its own rewards. Roll on Saturday, says Royston. We're all getting in the mood. And from Greece, Athenian Pie, evening all, short of the increase is due to clubs' professionalism in all places on display. It's been a hell of a long time since we've had such confidence on and off the pitch. We are jubilant. Okay, we've had a message. I spoke with Stell earlier this week. He wasn't able to get along to Doncaster on Saturday, but he is looking forward to being back down the lane against Tranmere on Saturday. I've also just tidied up. I think a lot of us were a little surprised that Notts were playing in black and white at Morecambe when they were in red on, was it last Tuesday? It seems so long ago now. Reason for that was a clash of shorts. Morecambe are red shirts, white shorts. Our away kit is blue shirts, white shorts. Didn't want there to be a clash of white shorts, so we stuck in black and white. And I know the supplementary is going to come straight in, so I'll preempt it. Lincoln played in black shorts when they came to us in the Carabao Cup. Apparently, there is a form of discretion, if you like, with the match officials with the colour of shorts. So it's not compulsory, but Notts elected they didn't want a clash of white shorts, so hence they went in black and white. Hopefully, that just tidies things up for you. Now, whether, as in previous seasons, I'm not sure they've got on order a set of matching blue shorts that they don't necessarily make available to the general public, and maybe then they could go in all blue. Evening Paul and Chloe says, right, I have to get this one right, Chloe, and I can't remember which way round it is. So it's Steph, I think it's Milek. I think I was calling him Milek before, and I met his dad, Steph's dad. So he gave me a rollicking for pronouncing the surname wrong. Steph comes up from, I think it's somewhere south of London to games. So hello, Steph Milek. I hope I've got that right. Shane Walker, evening all from a nice sunny south coast. Callum Frankton Lees, evening, sat in front of you on Saturday and have to admit wouldn't have recognised you until I saw Chloe. Hey, I know my place, Chloe. I can sit in blissful ignorance in the stand, and then the guy just in front of me turns round and goes, oh, that's Chloe, you must be Paul Mace. There you go. There you go. Right, Chloe, you can probably give a younger person's perspective. The the 12th, I was going to say 12th man, you can't say that anymore. The 12th person, nearly 3,000 at Doncaster, 13,000 against Grimsby. Huge numbers. As a young fan, I think your first game was something like Manchester City. I can't remember, something like that. What's your take on this whole supporter growth and demographic?
Realistically, I think there's probably a few factors to it. You've got to be successful to start with, and that's why we've managed to see the numbers creep up. But not just that, I think we've got a stable fan base in terms of people that will go every week, no matter what league we're in, especially at our home. And you saw that throughout our time in the National League. Yeah, we might have got playoffs every season and things like that, but it wasn't all kind of like we were winning every week or anything like that. And some of it wasn't pretty football, but you kind of still saw the same 4,000+ at home week in, week out. That's now crept up drastically. I mean, we've got 6,000, I think it's around 6,000 season ticket holders, which is the most I've ever known us have since supporting them for the last just over a decade now. And a lot of that, I think, will be younger fans coming through, which is great to see. And it's what everybody was kind of worried about in terms of the Notts fan base and generally being from an older generation. But I think obviously sustained success is kind of the key factor in that. I think as well, a few people have brought it up over the river. Now that Forest are in the Premier League, as we all know, and all get told every week, I'm sure. But with it's virtually impossible to get a match ticket over there, never mind a season ticket, and never mind the prices, the memberships that you now need to get a ticket. And people want to kind of support the city in terms of football. We're a very sport-driven city with obviously the three stadiums so close together with Trent Bridge and Forest and ourselves. So the drive in the whole city is always kind of around sport and around just that in general. And there's definitely a drive. We get it promoted. Notts, the cricket, and Forest all kind of promote each other within, especially the last couple of years. We've obviously burnt some bridges and rebuilt them back up again. But I'm always seeing people, like I used to work over at the cricket, and different initiatives that they have and promoting each other whenever they're playing. And obviously we can't all play at the same time, which you'll see with the Forest game against Burnley having to be moved because of the cricket. But we're just such a sport driven city, and people just want to go and watch sport. So if that means that they're now having to go and watch Notts, and obviously the success that we've bought in the past couple of seasons and the style of football we're playing, and it's bums off seats moments, people want to stay and people want to watch it week in, week out. So that's definitely a factor. But obviously the success that we've had ourselves, and then friends bring their friends, and it's all kind of word of mouth. And we've kind of now created a bigger fan experience. And like we say at Doncaster, a lot of people have kind of moaned about maybe our away fans and the away following might not be great, even though in terms of numbers we've had a great following all throughout the National League. That sometimes I've heard a lot of complaints about that we're not kind of creating enough noise. A lot of people don't like sitting down, and they have the argument of you should be standing at a away game. But we're bringing that back now. Like Doncaster was the epitome of what we should be like in a way, and it was absolutely incredible. As it's easy to say after we've kind of put on that kind of performance after Morecambe away, but it's great to see. And it definitely is, like you say, the 12th man, the 12th person, and it means a lot to the players, and it drives them. It really does, especially if you look at just after half time and scoring that goal. The drives there, do you know what I mean, with the fans and how good they were. So it means a lot to the players, and it's just we're in this kind of spiral that if the fans are backing them, then they're performing on the pitch.
Very interesting. There is a debate, isn't there, about where the extra fans are coming from, and there is a view that that Forest going into the Premier League, very limited capacity there, actually has a positive effect on Notts. What do we all think? You know, are these Forest fans coming down to support Notts? I've got some emails saying don't know anyone that's a Forest fan. Others saying they do know Forest fans that are coming on and getting season tickets. What are your thoughts on that one? Matthew Rimington, he sent me quite a long, which I thought is quite well thought out. message on Facebook. Some of you may have read. He says, I think a big part of it is down to Forest being in the Premier League. In order to get tickets over the Trent, you now need to become a member, which costs nearly £100 a pop. This doesn't even guarantee you being able to get tickets. If a ticket does become available, then according to mates who watch Forest regularly, this is the only odd ticket here and there. That means if a family of 4, for example, can't go and watch a game. Also, if a ticket does become available, it's silly money. The only alternative to that is to come and watch Notts. With sensible ticket prices and a good brand of winning football, then it becomes a no-brainer. I don't think it's any coincidence that over the last 2 years, the average age of Notts fans, certainly in the COP, we'll come on to average age and female support in a moment, the average age has reduced massively. Good football at reasonable prices equals bums on seats, says Matthew. What do you think to that? Here's a few more thoughts from our flock. Trevor Robinson. The away support is absolutely fantastic. Dare I say, louder than the home noise. Royston says the players respect the fans, so we support the team. Callum Frankton Lee says, I've noticed over the last 3 to 4 years, there's a lot more younger fans, and he's put email supporters, I think he means female supporters, than there was many years ago. I absolutely, totally agree with that. Chris B, going back to the Scardino days, I remember 8 through the gate initiatives and thinking that'd never work. Chris Gosling, no reason why we shouldn't be aiming for a 10k average gate this season. Obviously, success on the pitch will determine if that happens. Gary Smithhurst, post-COVID, yes, I agree with that. There seems to be a greater interest in seeing live football at all clubs. This, allied to Notts doing well and playing attractive football, all add to increased crowds. Lippy Jane, our family historically always went to both. 30, 40 years ago, there was a hardcore that did both. I think costs and those sorts of things made that a very small number. But you're quite right, Lippy Jane, years, and I'm going back 30, 40 years, there was a hardcore group that went to home games of both teams on alternate Saturdays. We go just to Notts. The young ones seem to be going to both again. Nathan says attendances for most lower league clubs is on the up. That, combined with our fantastic last season, makes much more noticeable. Chris B, being able to stream all games during lockdowns may have created a habit of watching games. I say it's impacted me going to more away games. That's an interesting thought. I'm not sure about the Forest one, if I'm honest. I'm not sure. I think a lot of neutral fans, I think a lot of people with young families that watch football, probably from pressure from their young children, and Forest is not necessarily, I choose my words carefully, what's the Forest cabal will be on me, it's a more expensive and a more intimidating atmosphere at Forest. There's 30,000 seats and there's 30,000 seats full. Notts, you've got 19, I think they've got a renewed safety certificate now for 19,000. So instantly there's more space, it's more welcoming. If you've got young kids, they can wander around seats, those sorts of things, get the sweets from the fast food outlets. And I think it is a lot less, when you are very young, intimidating environment. And I think it's a lot of neutral fans rather than Forest fans that are coming to Notts games, and we're getting a whole new generation of families coming now. Certainly a lot more females. I think a lot more teenage females, a lot more young school-age females, and I think a lot of mothers as well coming down with the dads or coming on their own and bringing their kids, because Notts, I think, is a very family-friendly environment. We still don't give Derek Pavis anywhere near enough credit for delivering the stadium that he did, but to an extent, it's a Championship Premier League ready stadium that happens to have only ever had lower division football in it for best part of 20 years these days. So that would be my view. And I think the gentleman that spoke about COVID, I think that's a good point. I think across the country, I think we got starved of going to watch football. And I think since COVID, a lot of teams, there's been a big COVID bounce, if you like, for people going to want to watch and get out the house and watch live entertainment. Paul Huskisson says, my wife, Dana, bought her first season ticket this year. 3 years ago, she hated football. Duncan Comrie, and there has to be an element in this, I think it's all down to proper owners and a much more sensible way of running the club. Just get a few more. Callum, I don't think Forest being in the Prem is a big cause. Our gates have been up for longer than they have been up there. And I'll throw this one in for some comments, and I know there'll be a few boos. How much of this, I think if you look historically at Notts' tendencies, single biggest sea change in the last 10 years was Alan Hardy's arrival. There were less than 5,000 average in League One with Ray True. That average under Alan went up to just shy of 8,000, and that included the season in which the club was relegated. So wins were certainly at a premium. I think you can almost track back this increased interest back to that point. Chris Gosling, I go now most of the time with my 3 kids. They love it. And as a cost for entertaining 3 kids, a great cost for entertaining 3 kids, Notts offers better value for money than anything else. I was going to say, you go to the cinema these days. I mean, that is, everything now costs so much more money. And Chloe and I were talking about this earlier before the programme started. Notts have the under 12s initiative, £1, and they've introduced a very successful Super Sevens scheme this year. And all of those, I think, make a big difference. Ian Cooksey, one thing I've noticed is more people from ethnic backgrounds, totally agree with this as well, coming into Notts. That has never happened before and can only be a good thing, as in previous years, this would not have happened. Steph, I'm not going to pronounce your surname, I'll get it wrong again. Premier League football tickets are so pricey across the country, no longer a working class sport. I think this filters down the leagues to more affordable days out for the individuals and family. Matt Arnold, the brand of football we play was always going to increase in tendencies. It makes us fun to watch. And I think, I would underpin everything we've said there. You need the team to be winning. Okay. If the team is winning, you stand a chance. I mean, you're selling lots of tickets. The day job in the week is Burnley, Chloe. How would the demographics say at Burnley compared to Notts in terms of crowd composition?
I'd say that it is quite a lot of younger fans really than Notts, even though I do think that is definitely on the up. They tend to have a group of older fans that you kind of get to know quite well, because they're the ones that still come down to the ticket office and kind of still need the help in terms of that. And I think with them, it's more of like kind of similar in terms of a family thing, but I think it's gone more towards that they come down with their family initially, get bought by, same as me, your grandparents or your parents. And then when you get a little bit older, it's kind of go with your mates kind of thing. So you still get the older generation there, but they don't necessarily sit together with their kids. But there's definitely like a generation come through of younger fans. So they have a stand called the Barnfield stand or cricket field, or it's called different things, whoever you talk to. That's like kind of like our COP and a little bit of a smaller scale, and everybody's packed in, everybody stood up there, and that's created that kind of culture. And in there is where all of the younger generation are, so they're all kind of put together, so it's kind of more obvious to see in that way, and then you've obviously got them spread out in the ground as well. But I think in terms of Notts, I think the reason why you've seen a lot more younger fans is exactly like you've said, the family environment. I think you could probably also talk about women's football, just as like an initiative. We've seen a lot of people say, my kids are so into it that they've now seen like role models and stuff on TV, and we've had good success with England for the last few years, and obviously they want to see more of that, even though it is the men's down at Notts. And we do now have a ladies team. I mean, I remember going down to watch them before they disbanded. Really, I remember going to watch them at Wembley. So I think now we've got that coming through again. As
promoted
part
last year, I think, didn't they? They're in a high division this year. Yeah, they won
yeah.
last year.
Yeah, they're doing well again, and that'll be great to see them progress. Now that I'm sure they'll get more funding now we're back in the league as well. But like I say, international women's football. But I think in terms of people my age and maybe a little bit younger, I think the best thing that Notts have done in terms of ticketing pricing is introduce the 22 to 25 season tickets. So this is a price category that they don't have on a regular match ticket. So essentially, if I didn't have a season ticket, I'd be paying the full adult price, which is now £22 or 24 on match day. But the biggest saving that you can make as a season ticket holder is if you're in my age category and you're talking less than, I think it's around £10 a game. I can't remember exactly how the figures work out, which is then almost doubled. Well, it is more than doubled if you then attend a game one by one. So you're kind of better off buying a season ticket, even if you know you can't attend all of the games, like myself, because you're still much better off buying a season ticket. And I think that's what Notts knew that they needed to push, especially we're a very big student city. At the same time, two big universities who are basically in the city the same time that the season rolls around. So while they're not at university, it's our closed season anyway. So to get all of these people through the doors, it's to have season ticket initiatives like that. And like we say, they're well priced tickets for especially the kids and the under 22s, the under 25s now. So they've definitely done the right thing with ticket pricing. And like you say, going back to Alan Hardy, one of the things that he did do very well was bring the kids in. I think he transformed really the family stand, and then we've now kind of carried that on since he's gone. There's a lot of activities for them. The Junior Magpies sells out virtually every year, as far as I'm aware. There's a lot of events on during the season. They have the Christmas party, which players are actually there, which is a massive draw. To be able to be kind of within touching distance of the players, I think is a huge thing for kids growing up. And the opportunity to wait after the game if you want to go and have your photo with them, sign memorabilia, they're always there, kind of same time every week outside the Derek Pavis. All of these things drag the kids along, really. They know they're in touching distance, whereas you look at other clubs, even in our division, you kind of like Wrexham. Like I'm not too sure how their club works as such, but I'm almost guaranteed that it's harder to kind of get anywhere near a Wrexham player than it is a Notts County player, and that draws a lot of people in. And just to have that kind of relationship that you feel like you can build with the club. And another part of that is our amazing media team. Again, we all feel like we're closer to the players and we're all kind of part of a team, which is great. So I think there's so many different things that is drawing in the crowds, drawing in females, drawing in the younger generation. And this is started and has been built on for a while now, but we're kind of now getting to the peak of that and everything's fallen into place. And there's so many different factors that we've all mentioned that have all definitely contributed. But like we say, the biggest factor for me probably is that relationship you can build with the players and with the club, as well as sustained success.
In Cooksey, it's going to cost £55.75. You're good at maths for the next 3 away games if bought in advance. It's good value. It seems cheaper than some of the National League last season. This will encourage more away support. 4 years of winning most of your games does help a lot, says Stuart Edwards. Dale Pike, it says the most we will pay is £27 for an adult ticket at Crewe, and that's 17-year-old and upwards. Neil Hornbuckle says that Forest have had a reduction in attendance in the last season due to VAR and additional cameras being installed. They still have a waiting list, which has also helped Notts attendance. A few more comments. Jamie Straw, most fans who don't attend always return when times are good. It's fantastic to see so many old faces returning to games home and away regularly. There's also a buzz about crowds going up and wanting to be part of something. The club's social media content is currently excellent. The fan base has grown through sustained success. The membership scheme for Forest and affordability and availability of tickets has also been a factor. Notts launching the Super Sevens is huge and something I've been actively trying to push through work. Long may it continue. That's echoed by Leon Barber. It wasn't long ago that Scardino's 8 through the gate was pie in the sky. And it's thanks to Leon. This is where I came up with my 40,000 stat. We've now got 11,000, 16,000 and 13,000 in our last 3 home games. Okay, just one other thought. Don't know what people's thoughts and views are. So I sit in the Pavis, back kind of left towards the Cop end. The Pavis now is very, very busy, very, very full. What do we think about opening up half, and not always, because it depends how many you give to away fans, but what do we think about opening up the Jimmy Cyril so that people can choose to pay there, or even if you want a season ticket there, you can have a season ticket, but part of the deal would be you would be displaced back into the Pavis for a certain number of games. Now, I know that the challenge for the club in previous years has been the way it works in terms of division with away fans, exits, and all of those sorts of things. My understanding is Notts have done some of those works now. What do we think? Is it something you would like to see, that Notts fans could be on the Jimmy Cyril side, like half of that side, potentially for most games, subject to the size of the away support? I mean, clearly it is permissible and legal. It takes from the back of the Pavis 10 to 15 minutes to get out of the stadium now, out of that stand in terms of the egress. So I don't foresee it will be a major problem in the Cyril, and that would obviously alleviate some of the pressure points for fast food outlets and those sorts of things, which I think at the moment they are finding it a little bit difficult to process everything. Derek Flower says, do not do enough to attract the football supporting students. They should have visited both universities to promote the cheap season cards. Good idea, Reader Cyril, says Paul Huskisson. And that will probably, I think we're coming up to the halfway mark. I think that's kind of the whole fan boom, if you like. We look forward to, nudging towards 10,000 on Saturday. Let's talk a little bit of football, because I have found it quite fascinating. Doncaster for me was without doubt the most comfortable game we've had in the National League, in the Football League. And for me, it was almost like it was a National League game, in the sense that I thought that we were in total control, if I'm honest with you, for 90 minutes, and was always very, very confident. What was your take? Obviously, saw you there, Chloe, and you brought your flatmate along. Even though she's a Preston fan, she didn't go to Sheffield Wednesday. She came with you, didn't she?
Absolutely. She loves it. So we've got her on the last couple of seasons. And then now she'll be 3 games out of 3. So she came to Morecambe, came to Doncaster, and she'll be coming on Saturday with me to Tranmere. So yeah, dragging that attendance up as much as I can. I'll have my little say and drag people along. But no, she enjoys it. But yeah, I mean, just to kind of echo what you say, it's always great when it's comfortable and you can't see any way of you losing the game. And obviously we had the kind of sloppy last minute goal, but I don't think it killed anything off in the game at all. It was just kind of a consolation one at the end, which it'd been nice to keep the clean sheet, 2 out of 2. Even though Morecambe was a bit of a different display. Even though I thought, again, we dominated, we always say, in terms of possession, but it just shows you it kind of means nothing when we barely even created anything against Morecambe. And they look like a side similar to Doncaster for me. They kind of parked the bus and then looks like they were playing for a draw, which was crazy to me, having just been relegated out of League One. But then you go to Doncaster, and I think they made a bit more of a go of it than Morecambe maybe did. But we were just incredible. Everything kind of worked. When you come out at half time and you score instantly, you kind of know the way the game's going, because you know how much that builds up during the second half, and the fans are on your side. And we were echoing around the stadium. And I think there was even the first yellow card that I think it was McGoldrick who said, I didn't even hear the whistle when he kicked the ball and the flag had already gone up, because the stadium was loud. Everyone will tell you that. But it's just a great performance, especially after we've had a couple of dodgy ones already. And we can just see that the style of football we're playing is working. We're making them tweaks, and look at where it's got us so far. It's not an easy place to go, even though they haven't had the greatest results. But Mansfield only went there and got a draw. So it shows that they've got something about them. And so have we, clearly. So it was just a great day. The sun helps. It was just a great atmosphere. And like you say, we look so comfortable, and we're getting people like Maka back into the game. He's on the score sheet for the first time. It's only going to get better from here, hopefully. So, and then we're back at home. I think that's where everyone feels the most comfortable, and we feel like we're going to win every game at home because it's what we've done in the last few seasons. So roll on, Tranmere.
Chris Gosling says, I think for our regular games, this is the Cyril debate. I think for our regular games, we need our supporters grouped together. Moving some to the Cyril may dilute the atmosphere, possibly. Duncan Comrie, absolutely agree, Paul, for the games with lower supported travelling teams. Callum says, I would like to see away support housed closer to the Kop with home support in the Cyril, presumably, near the family stand on a pay-on-the-gate basis. Andrew Rayson, it could work, but looking into the future with optimism, it'd have to be ditched if promoted to the Championship or, heaven forbid, above. Well, it'd certainly be a good problem to have, wouldn't it? Stuart Edwards, no, not until we run out of seats regularly. James Shipley, only open up the Jimmy Cyril when attendances warrant it for me. Will be too spread out if you open it up for lower attended games. Callum says, saw some Doncaster fans on YouTube saying they didn't think Notts were very good. Donny were just very poor. I thought we just completely controlled the game. So did I, Callum. Ian Cooksey, Doncaster were probably one of the worst Football League sides I've ever seen. Notts made them look poor, but they have got it all on to stay up even at this point. Chris Gosling says, I'll hold my hands up. I've been critical of Richard Brindley's performances in the right central back role, but at the centre of the three, he looks a completely different player. Kudos to Luke Williams for that. Ian Cooksey, Morecambe thrashed Bradford 3-0 on Saturday. Shows what a good performance Notts put in there. Adi Clark totally controlled the game from start to finish. Confidence seems high. Great that Maka was back on the score sheet. Just hope Saudi aren't watching him. I've been fortunate enough to see all 4 league games so far. And I think what has been, and jot down your views, what for me has been noticeable is that the completely different approaches the opposition have taken to try to deal with us. And it certainly does appear that the opposition are thinking a great deal about how the way we play rather than the way they play. And, you know, if you look at Sutton, clearly it was our first game, but you might say that was almost a blueprint that would cause us problems. You know, aggressive, long diagonals into the box, been very strong and physical. They win at a canter. They've then lost their next 3 games. So clearly, whatever it is they did against Notts, they haven't done very well against anyone else. If you looked at Morecambe, it was completely the opposite, wasn't it? They surrendered half the pitch, just literally surrendered half the pitch. 11 in their own half, gave us the ball. The moment we passed it to either of our wide men, instantly to that side. And that was clearly the tactic that they wanted to play us. Grimsby, I thought, was a fairly open game. We could have won it, we could have drawn it, we could have lost it, to be honest. And Doncaster, I think they tried to put a bit of a press on us early doors, couldn't do it. And it was almost like we were playing another National League team. But what does interest me, I don't know a great deal about Tranmere. I have no idea, Chloe, how Tranmere will set up against us. You know, will they stick a press on us? Will they give us half the pitch? Will they employ 3 6'8" centre forwards out the reserves and whatever else and just bombard us? I think it's very interesting. I genuinely have no idea, and I'm not sure too many other people do either, of how teams are going to play against us this year. Because clearly, Morecambe did not sit in their own half with 11 men against Bradford.
No, absolutely. And I think I was expecting more of that kind of performance against teams while we were at home. I kind of get that, protect at least a point away. Mudderlane's a hard place to come to. Everybody knows that. And that's kind of what I was expecting. Whereas Grimsby have kind of gone a little bit similar to Doncaster and gone kind of high press, play on the defence because they know we've got problems back there. But they prove they can't keep it up all game. Once people are running around like headless chickens trying to kind of press high, and inevitably we do lose the ball because of the way we play. That's great in the first half, and they kind of proved that. But we should have enough the second half, kind of then control it. Hopefully, we're not too many behind by that point. But it's kind of exactly what happened at Grimsby. I thought we were incredible going forward and producing different chances, and kind of back down both wings we look incredible. And I think we've really got two of the best wingers in the league, and they can both produce incredible crosses into the box and give us different options. And most of our goals come from our wings, and everybody knows that. Everybody does their research, which is why Morecambe made so much sense and we didn't get much look out of it. But I think teams are looking at us and probably dissecting all the different styles of play. And I think it's quite obvious that we do use our wings a lot, which is, like you say, exactly what Morecambe did. However, I was expecting more of that at home. I wasn't expecting a team like Morecambe to really protect a point when they're at home. It didn't really make any sense to me. But I'm expecting more teams, to be honest, to come out like that against us when we're at home, and then maybe have a little bit more of a go when we're away. But like you say, it's hard to tell, because do they just sit back and give us, like you say, half the pitch and we've then got to try and break 10 men down behind the ball? Or do they go, like, we'll just try and get the ball off them as high up as possible because they play so high, hope we get something early and can keep it there? It's difficult, and I'm sure we're analysing, like, as much as we've got all the data analysis in, that we're looking into their performances. And maybe we didn't do enough that against Sutton because it was blatantly obvious what they were going to do, with the kind of height of players that they've got. So teams like that, it's kind of easier to see what's coming as soon as they walk out on the pitch. But then other teams where they haven't got the six blokes over the height of 6'2" in their team, it's more difficult, especially because we don't watch them week in, week out. So yeah, I'm sure we're analysing them as much as we are, and they're analysing us, sorry. But at the same time, we've got to go out and play our game, and we're going to have to adapt to however they come out. So we can't think too deeply, especially when we're playing at home, about how the opposition's going to come out. We'll go out with our game plan. If that needs to be adapted during the game, then that's the way it needs to be.
A wry smile. Derek Flowers. Notts could take a leaf out of Doncaster's catering. It's a good choice. We can't even get chips unless you go to the outside caterers' vans. Now, I know Lorraine Clough does an excellent service with a loaded flavours outside fans. I know they're very, very popular. Yeah, chips and Notts County, Chloe, go back before you were born. I can remember going when I used to work at Leicester, and I'd get over for a midweek Notts game. The most popular thing, and of my age, everyone will start pinging the messages in now, were the chip cobs. You used to get like a bread roll, and you just literally shovel full of chips, oven chips had come out in your bread roll, and away you went, and you paid your £2 or whatever it was, and you had your chip cob, and everyone was happy. And then for whatever reason, a few years later, we stopped doing chip cobs, and there was an outcry together with the mushy peas. And even now, there are still outcries over the fact you can't get chips and chip cobs and all the rest of it with Notts catering. So look, it's one for right to Joe Palmer, the new chief exec. I'm sure he's got plenty of other things, but remind him about the chip cobs. Chris Gosling says Tranmere fans on socials saying they'd take a point on Saturday. League Two teams more than capable of doing a Yeovil against us. Yeah, Yeovil did the proverbial parking the bus last season and getting away with the point. Dale Pike, Kane Hemmings is still there, but being frozen out by their new man in charge, according to the Tranmere fans. And of course, ex-Nottsman, Christian Dennis up front for Tranmere. See what he's got. I mean, he was always a good poacher, wasn't he? Didn't necessarily get a lot of game time under Neil Ardley, but you know, an old school poacher. Gary Smithhurst, low block and low setup and load up set pieces is how to set up against Notts. Chris Gosling, hopefully Will Randall can get soon. Likely to lose Jody to international duty early in September. Good point. Having a threat down both flanks has given us a real edge. Thought Austin was great again Saturday. It's transfer deadline, I believe, a week on Friday. I was talking to Lee Curtis today. I've got Lee to proofread my new book. So apparently he's going to a rave in Newark. I think he's too old to wear a floppy bucket hat like you, Chloe, and go raving in Newark. But apparently that's what he's doing when he's not proofreading my book this weekend. But we're just chatting a little bit. So we've had a few names coming in. So would you be going into the transfer market ahead of next Friday? Clearly, there's a debate about central defenders. And I've also had a few messages coming in about Paul Belshaw, James Belshaw, the Bristol Rovers keeper, who has fallen out. Or, well, I don't know who's fallen out with who, but Joey Barton has certainly fallen out with Mr. Belshaw, told him he won't be playing again. James is looking to go out on loan. We played the kind of Notts fan card with David McGoldrick. Has that ship sailed now? We've got Aidan Stone. What are your thoughts on potential incomings?
Again, I'd like to see a defender. As much as we can say, I was exactly the same. I can't remember who commented on Richard Brindley. I'd kind of had similar opinions of him even last season, but he's looked completely different playing in the central as the central defender. However, height is such a key factor, and we know that, and we need competition for place. That's my biggest argument, and I don't think we've got that at the back at all, to be honest. I mean, we've got a couple of players who it'll work for some games, but I just think that we're chopping and changing the back line too often. And I think that's something that you want to keep quite sturdy as much as you can. And I'll always be shouting for another defender. I think we need one. And I think certain players are essentially think they're undroppable at the minute because of the lack of competition for place. So I definitely think that we do need another centre half. Obviously, everybody wants the same thing. Somebody good with their feet, but also tall, a threat from corners, both defensively and attacking. Yeah, it's great. And you've got to realise kind of the position we're in. We're not going to get somebody like Van Dijk come in, but we've definitely got the pull factor to get these players with these attributes in. I don't know whether we've left it too late with it only being a week away, and I'm sure we've looked at different options, but it is a little bit worrying now. We've kind of come all the way through and not adapted at all. We've obviously bought the guy in from Wolves, and it's a bit worrying to see that he's barely even on the bench. So I don't know what we think about him, or whether we think what we've already got is good enough, but I can imagine he'll get recalled before the end of his season-long loan if he's not getting any game time, he's not even sat on the bench. But I think that's a lot of people's kind of issues with the team at the moment. We seem to have an abundance of players going forward in different roles and everything like that. But at the back is where we're looking a bit shaky. Somebody said there about set pieces. And yeah, that's where we're most uncomfortable. Every time somebody goes up for a corner or a free kick, I'm kind of worried. But on the back of the last two games, we obviously had a dodgy goal, and we know that silly mistakes is one of our biggest problems, and we need to eliminate that as much as we can. The same goes for last season. Maybe we could have won the league if it wasn't for a few mistakes. Obviously, you're never going to not make a mistake the whole season, but as much as you can eliminate that, you stand yourself in a better stead. But just at the back, I just think we need to strengthen in terms of just squad depth and somebody that can kind of come in, fight for their place and get a first team spot. I just think my biggest thing is competition for place, and you always want that. You've obviously got to have not a big squad, because then you've got players that aren't even getting on the bench and not even seeing any kind of competitive football. And when we do need them, when there are injuries, they're not fit, etc. So you've still got to keep it down to quality over quantity. But I think we're too shy at the back. In terms of a goalkeeper, I'm not too sure on Stone at the minute. We're only 4 games in, so I can't have too much of a go at him. I think there might have been a couple of goals where he might have been able to do better for, but I don't think he's dropped an absolute stinker just yet. I think, yeah, he's more comfortable to have the ball at his feet. This is why we've brought him in, but I'm not too sure. I'm not too convinced about the distribution as of yet, but I'm hoping that'll come just because I think we had Sam Slocum last season, who I think we all knew would kind of take a bit of a backseat this season, just given his age and everything like that. But I just think that when we needed different options, especially against teams like Morecambe, Slocum had this kind of long crossfield pass that, I mean, it probably only lands 3 or 4 times out of 10, but to Langstaff, and it was to his feet. Whereas I feel like when I'm watching Notts, our outlet, it's either going out of play or it's just going into an area. I mean, that could be something that they are actually doing in training, and it's not actually hitting a certain player from a goal kick or when the goalkeeper's got the ball at his feet, but kicking it into space, and maybe there's just nobody getting there. But it does feel like when we're distributing the ball from the goalkeeper that it's coming straight back and we're having to work back at that. But that's just something that I've personally picked up on. I can't have too much of a go at him. I don't think many of the goals really, if it's been his fault, like I say, he's not dropped a clanger or anything like that. But again, something that we can strengthen on, especially if Sam Slocum is taking a back pedal and we know he's not going to really play many games for us unless, like you say, we've got an injury or a sending off. And he probably is good enough to play a couple of games for us. I mean, he was our goalkeeper at the end of last season. Obviously, with having Archie Marin come in for the penalties at the final, but he still played the whole game. Do you know what I mean? He's not dropped off the face of the earth. But again, we've got Brooks that goes out on loan nearly every season. So the competition for place, again, as a goalkeeper is probably quite thin as well. But do you risk bringing somebody else in and then it's maybe too many bodies? We can't play them all the time. So it's difficult. And I'm sure we'll see more of Stone. I can't give an honest opinion on what I think he is like as a goalkeeper after 4 games in, but maybe it's something we look at in January, or if we feel like we're in a position where we can bring somebody else in, then great. But I think this point in the season with only a week to go, I can't personally see anyone else coming in at this late stage.
Chris Gosling says, isn't Belshaw just a romantic thought among Notts fans? Derek Flowers, a defender above 6 foot is required. Chris B, I would have taken Belshaw before, but we have 2 senior keepers now who are both decent at this level. Stuart Edwards says, Notts doing well so far. If only we could get Macca and McGoldrick involved more and stop Cameron doing those little dives of his. Andrew Rayson, I don't know where he is fitness-wise, but I can see Wolves, as your point, Chloe, recalling Tupton if he doesn't get game time soon. Definitely need another permanent central defender, though. On the Tupton scenario, it's unusual, though. I was talking this with a Notts fan today. It's unusual for Notts to sign a player and put him straight in the team. Normally, Luke will talk about getting his fitness levels up, understanding about a very specific way we play, and understanding the very specific role that he wants that player to play. John Bostock, several weeks before he came in. Jody Jones, several weeks training before they came in. So, don't really know. Maybe he feels that Tupton needs quite a bit of work on the training ground. Although I guess it is a little surprising that he's not even been on the bench for the past couple of games. There is some debate going on. I've not seen it myself, so I'm not going to talk too much about it in terms of share issues by the brothers. Look, it could be writing off loans. I wouldn't read too much into it. The brothers are independently wealthy people, very stable. I'm sure that whatever it is they are and aren't doing at the minute with the finances of the club is not, for us, anything to worry about at all. Neil Hornbuckle says, we need an option in front of Jim O'Brien in midfield, who has given the ball away twice for opposition goals, and a target man for something different up front. What else have we got? Okay, that'll about do it for the moment. Right. We've actually only played 4 league games. Feels like we're about 6 months back in the Football League so far, doesn't it? So I think it would be a fair summation to say that quite a large proportion of our fan base underestimated the step up to League Two compared to the National League. And after the 90 minutes or 112 minutes, 120 minutes, whatever it was at Sutton, woe is us, blah, 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 bottom off, going down, etc., etc., etc. You know, the promotion vibe dipped a fair bit. We've now played 4 games. What's your take on things, Chloe, after 4 games? Do you still think a promotion push is viable this year? Is halfway perfectly acceptable? Are you happy just staying up? Where are you after and it's only 4, but I think it's a fair bit more balanced than when we're all coming home from Sutton.
Yeah, absolutely. I think personally for me, which probably a lot of people won't agree with, as I think it's kind of a free hit. Obviously, don't get relegated. Let's not go crazy, but it's a free hit. I would absolutely snap your hand off for playoffs now, even if we went and lost them. That to me is a very successful season back in the league and kind of seeing where we're going. If we keep the same kind of football, I'd be happy with that and see that progress and see how it works in a different league. I personally I don't think there's a massive jump between the top of the National League and probably the bottom third of the League Two. But I think there's then a big jump up to the top. I mean, we all saw and probably got a bit too excited when the bookies had us down as kind of one of the top 4 candidates to get promotion, not only just via the playoffs to kind of go up in the top 3. I mean, that would be a huge achievement with the first season back, don't get me wrong. And we've got the players to do that, but we're massively underestimating other teams that have just come down and that have been in the league for a very long time. It's quite insulting to a lot of teams, I can imagine, that they think that us and Wrexham, just because of how well we played last season and the style of football that we played, we're going to go straight to the top and kind of knock everyone out of our paths. And obviously the first game hit hard like it did in the first game after we got relegated. We had 2 men sent off, went down to Eastleigh and never kind of seen anything like it and lost 1-0. So it was kind of a very similar vibe going down to Sutton. But yeah, it's very interesting. And personally, yeah, of course, I want for us to progress. And to me, that's being in the top half. If we have a season where we're mid-table, I don't really know how I'll react to that, because we've not had it in so long. We've either been on the cusp of relegation or getting relegated, or in the playoffs and losing, or last season winning it. So it's been a very long time since I've kind of known, with maybe 5 to 10 games to go, where we're going to end up. It's been a very long time since we've been in that situation. So for me, absolutely, we should be pushing to kind of fulfill our potential. And to me, that's being in the top half. It then depends kind of what every other team's doing around you to see how far you can push yourselves. And I've had a conversation with quite a lot of people that it'll be drastically fewer points that you'll need to get into the playoffs and get promoted this season, especially with the 3 automatic places. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've seen that we've not had the easiest run in so far, and we've had 4, like you say, completely different games. So it's hard to gauge now what we're going to face next week, never mind in kind of 6 months' time where we're going to be. So for me, it's a free hit. Kind of go out there, do what we're doing now, and play the most positive, entertaining football that we can, and see how far it gets us. I can't see us getting relegated, to be perfectly honest, and I hope to God that doesn't happen and we're nowhere near the bottom. But I wouldn't be totally disheartened with mid-table as long as we've kind of given it a go. I think it might be close for a playoff place. So even if we finish 10th and end up, I don't know, within five points of playoffs, we can't complain at that at all. But to me, the biggest achievement would be to nick in a playoff place. That's kind of what my aim is for the season as a whole. And it'd be great if we get that or finish even higher.
Paul Huskisson sums it up quite well. Last season we had to get promoted, but this season promotion is a bonus. Ian Cooksey, we are a point better off after 4 games this season compared to last. There you go. Chris Gosling, I think top 10 is within our grasp. Jury's still out as to how we'll fare against the top teams. The away game to MK Dons might be a benchmarker for us. Callum says playoffs are the goal, in my opinion. Wouldn't be disappointed if we finished 10th, though. Stuart Edwards, let's get 10 wins as quickly as possible and see where we can go from there. Shane Walker, this is not what we're talking about. Anything above the bottom two is good for me. We'll finish where we deserve to finish, says Duncan Comrie. Yeah, I mean, I think I've never really subscribed to the view that we were going to storm this division. I think I actually said, and check it out, that I'd be very, very happy with playoffs this season. That was before a ball was kicked. Statistically, this is the best division of the 5 to get out of. You know, we've come out of the division, i.e. the National League, where statistically it is the worst, i.e. 1 automatic, 1 playoff. We're now in a situation where statistically this is the best. You know, 3 go up and then a 4th through the playoffs. So 7th is good enough. I wonder if we are to have realistic playoff hopes, trying to be as balanced as possible, if this current group of players could quite do that. I personally, I would like us to see at least 1 defender, if not 2. And of course, it is a little bit different this year. When that transfer window shuts, our options then are virtually non-existent to strengthen. In the National League, the kind of transfer deadlines didn't really make a lot of difference because we were National League and there were all sorts of exemptions and things. Here, when that window shuts next week, that's kind of what we got till January. Personally, I would like to see a minimum of 1 defender, because I think going forward we are going to score goals. I'm not 100% convinced against some of the better teams we'll be able to keep clean sheets. You know that, and I could see how frustrated the manager was when we conceded the late goal. You know, we got a clean sheet, 0-0 Morecambe, but I could see the manager was wanting to build up 2 clean sheets in a week, build on that, and so on and so on. So I think he was very frustrated that Notts gave a goal away, if you like. Callum adds, if you're not aiming for playoffs as a minimum, what's the point? That goes for all teams, not just Notts. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, Callum. Yeah, you have to have your ambitions and your aspirations, but trying to look at it in a balanced vein. You know, where do we think we're going to be? I think we can be pushing playoffs. I think we can be nudging playoffs. I'll still have a bet with anyone that Stockport and Wrexham are both in the top 7 come the end of the season. You know, if you look at some of these freak results, we all tipped, didn't we? We all tipped Crawley to be relegated by Christmas, you know, and look at the points they've picked up already. I think there's an awful lot of bizarre results. Morecambe didn't come out of their own half to play us. They beat Bradford 3-0. Who would have realistically ever bet on that kind of result? Who would have thought that Sutton, after trouncing us, really lose their next 3 league games, not taken a point since? So I think you get a lot of bizarre results. And I still think Stockport, Wrexham, Gillingham, Mansfield, ourselves will be in that mix. But I think we maybe just need to strengthen a little bit to have any, to have certainly a chance of top 3. Look, we'll see. It's all conjecture. Right, we're coming up to the hour. We've got Tranmere Saturday at home. It's going to be good to be back home, Chloe, after all these away games.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like they've come thick and fast, but it's always great to be back home, and the atmosphere at home has been so good, especially with the big crowds. It definitely feels like we're back in the Football League, and it's just a nice place to be. And hopefully the weather picks up as well. It just makes it an even better day, and hopefully another 3 points. I mean, I always go into a home game very optimistic just because of how we've played at home and the points that we have got at home. It's been incredible over the last few years. So I'll always be positive going into a home fixture.
Okay, that's excellent. We'll wrap up on time for once tonight. Love Stuart Edwards' comment. I'd love to see us finish 23 places above Wrexham. Very good, Stuart. Very good, Stuart. We got 1 or 2 sneak previews of guests coming up in coming weeks. We have got MK Dons in the not too distant future. Who's managed MK Dons and Notts County? Chloe?
You're asking the wrong person.
Come on, you should know this. Keyboards, come on. Who's managed MK Dons and Notts? Bit of Mad Dog coming up ahead of that one. What else have we got? We hope to have Stell back next week. You've got a few games. You've got some bad clashes, haven't you, Chloe?
Yeah, it's not working out. Yeah, missing a couple. My next one after Tranmere will be Salford on the Friday night. So missing a couple. So we'll be keeping up on Twitter and everything like that. But yeah, unfortunately, there's a couple of Burnley clashes coming up.
Yeah, I hadn't thought actually, and you're quite right. Paul Ince, yes, you're quite right. I'm not having him on though, crikey. Matt Arnold, DML, you're quite right. John Gregory, Paul Ince, yes, and Duncan Conry, Luke Williams. I think he was assistant, wasn't he? Was he number 2, I think, to Russell Martin at MK Dons? But I'm sure that would be an interesting game for him. Anyway, we're running before we can walk. It's Tranmere Rovers on Saturday. A return of Christian Dennis and Kane Hemmings, by the sounds of it. Thank you for joining us all tonight. Interesting debate as always. We'll be back next Monday evening. And here's fingers crossed to 3 points on Saturday. Take care for now. Thank you, everyone. Good night.